Gentlemen, my name is Wolf, and I want to talk about Galeshot today. So, they did a live stream showcasing some of the elite specs, and I'm going to start with the Ranger ones, since it's the one I play the most, and, well, I main Ranger pretty much, although I'm probably still going to main Paragon going into the expansion so far. But, this surprised me, honestly, like, it has a lot of tools that I think will fit really well into a lot of different builds. Some of my fears were abated, but I think some of them still kind of fit. They've made a lot of choices with this that I do really like, but I think the problem of how the game is designed is still going to be a fundamental issue when it comes to this spec. But let me just let this play and I'll show you some of the good stuff. There's about a half hour here, so I'm going to skip through it and just sort of show you how things go here. So to start, they're going to switch into the bow here. And so the way the bow works is you'll see that they have the arrows over top here. Now you'll see the really, really nice thing is that while he's not in the bow, this is what I was worried about actually originally, is that while he's not in the bow, the arrows actually generate and regenerate over time. And the way they had set it up in the blog post and sort of explained it was that it would get more powerful over time. But the way they meant that is how they've done Hawkeye and a sort of stacking mechanic. I figured it was that you generated arrows over time. But with this style, it works so much better than what it was originally pitched as, or what I figured it was anyways, rather. Because with this, while you're out of your bow, you're regenerating the arrows, which is really nice because then you can swap in, do some stuff, swap out, and then use either your longbow or whatever other weapons. Now, it's interesting how they've set it up because they added a couple of augments to make it so longbow is actually better, but I have a feeling that when they launch Gale Force, or Galeshot, that they might try and nuke Let Loose Untamed. I genuinely think they're probably going to nuke either the quickness off of Let Loose or just Let Loose as a whole, because they're trying to make this the quickness DPS spec rather than Untamed sharing quickness. Unless they want to have both of them do it, maybe they change it to Alacrity, I don't know. But I could very much see a world where they release this and then try and delete Longbow Untamed, because it just sort of fits the exact same role as this, and they probably want to push you towards the new thing rather than Untamed, because Untamed was meant to be a brawler of sorts, right? So, like I said, since you can see the arrows here, it makes it so it's very easy to just switch into the bow at pretty much any time. And then when you use your second ability here, it'll consume one arrow. The third ability will also consume one arrow. And so, like I said, the second shot is a little rapid fire, so 3 arrows with a bit of a cooldown. And then I said previously that the third ability was basically short bow 3. Pretty much is short bow 3, but it also destroys projectiles with a little wind effect thing it showed there. And then the second ability shoots 3 arrows with a little bit of a cooldown, so half a rapid fire. It having a cooldown's a little bit unfortunate. The auto attack doesn't take any arrows though, so all in all it's not too bad. And you'll see right here he's generating a buff. So once you get to 5 stacks of this buff, it'll unlock Hawkeye and flip over your first ability here. So let me just skip ahead a little bit. You can see right there it doesn't take any arrows or anything like that. And there you go, there's Hawkeye. Now what's really nice is this goes up into the air and then it locks onto a bunch of targets and it does a bunch of AoE arrows, which looks really cool. But they they didn't show it on purpose, but by accident they moved slightly to the left a little bit later with Hawkeye, because my one worry was that if you would pop Hawkeye, you'd get rooted in the air to be able to or to have the animation come down. But thankfully, you're not rooted with it and you can move 24/7. So that is really, really, really nice. Big fan of that, because that was my original worry. But I do think the 5th arrow will root you in place. But then we go to the 4th one, which is basically a volley that is essentially, what is it? The exact same as Hunter's Ward on Dragon Hunter. You fire up an arrow package into the air, and then it volleys down a pack of arrows on top of everything. And it's literally Hunter's Ward. It's the exact same because it immobilizes. So they just ripped it straight off Dragon Hunter. Now there is a Grandmaster that you can take that turns that into, or no, not a Grandmaster, a middle line trait that turns that into a 2-charge AoE arrow like it still is, just to do more damage, which is what I'm probably going to be running in open world. And then, let me just go back and try and show the supersonic arrow here. I should use it in a second here, I think. Yeah, there's the AoE, and then there's the supersonic arrow. That apparently he tweaked the settings on the projectile speed, so it's so fast it's basically instant. So that's really nice for PvP, but make sure you dodge it, obviously, if you're playing against the Spec. I'm gonna use it in PvE only, most likely, but still. So, then, like I said, you generate your 5 stacks of your Hawkeye, and then you'll flip over your 1 skill, and you'll go right up into the air and slam out all of your arrows. So, all in all, it seems like it plays relatively well. Combined with some of the Grandmasters, you can make it so that you can stay in the bow pretty often, thankfully. I was a little worried about how camping this thing would go and whatnot, but they made some options in the skill tree that I'll show you in just a little bit that makes it so you can stay in here and camp it a little bit easier. So let me switch through. There's the tooltips, like I was saying. There's the immobilize on the 4, the exact same as Hunter's Ward. And let me skip through a little bit to get to the utility skills, where they start over here. So that is, the heal is just a basic heal. It heals you and grants super speed. That's literally it. So kind of underwhelming there, but meh. Now this is one of my personal favorites here, is I like the utility skills that actually do damage, and I felt like Ranger was lacking a shit ton of those. Like the only power do damage utility skill Ranger has is Frost Trap. Everything else scales with condition damage. Because yeah, Sikkim works for the pet, so if you're playing on Soul Beast, then that becomes a damaging skill. But otherwise, like, you don't really have anything other than Frost Trap for raw power damage. So that's really cool. If you have Swiftness, then it'll throw the knives even quicker, which is really cool. It forms like an X, and then they all pierce as well. So big fan of that. Definitely going to get a lot of value out of that. Then they have Mistral, which puts down a projectile wall that when you fire through it, will turn the arrows into frost arrows, which will chill and do a little bit of extra damage on every single arrow. Now, that could be really good in a group, but will it probably get a lot of use? I don't know. I might mess around with it myself. We'll see. Because I do like the idea of frost arrows as a Ashe main in League of Legends. Although that game is absolute cancer, but, you know, still. So, you fire your rapid fire through that, you fire your Hawkeye through that, you fire your supersonic arrow through that, your triple shot on the Galeshot bow. It's all going to blend together. There's a projectile reflect and a stun break. And then this is one of the other really cool ones. This is Whirlwind. They really outdid themselves with the animations here. This allows you to jump around and reposition, which will be really nice for PvP, and just a lot of fun for the open world as well. The thing is since this puts you higher up in the air, you might be able to use this for, like, fractal skips and stuff, too. So that'll be fun. I wonder if you can, like, jump and then buffer it so that it comes out at just the right time, and then, like, get even higher with it. I'll have to test it when I get my hands on it. But this is really sick. You throw a Yasuo tornado. You literally throw a Yasuo tornado. And then it sits on the ground and it does a bunch of damage. And then it pulls things towards it as well. So that elite skill is really, really sick. Big fan of that. Animation looks dope. Pulls everything with it. Gonna be fantastic for fractals when I can just pull everything off the map and troll my entire team. It'll be great. Absolute disaster. But yeah, so I'm probably going to make use of that, plus the knife throw, and then probably Whirlwind, and then Frost Trap, probably in the last spot, is most likely what it's going to be, and then either Troll Engine or We Heal is one to clone the quickness to your pet, more than likely. Otherwise, let's get into the Grandmasters, or the trait lines, rather. So starting at the start, it gives you the teachings of the Spec. Teaches you just how it works. Gale Force, like I said, or Wind Force, rather. So it's all the same fucking shit. Strike damage is increased while you have Swiftness, so you're going to want to have Swiftness pretty much 24/7. There's a sigil you can take that makes it so you get Swiftness whenever you kill something, so that might be really, really OP with this, just to have a perma 10% bonus. You'll probably get Swiftness from any group content anyways, but just a bit of extra damage there. Really nice. And then let's move on here. Your base movement speed's increased, so you don't need to ever run your Signet of the Wild, I think it is, Signet of the Hunt, whatever have you. Hawkeye also grants super speed, which is really nice. It just gives you extra bit of speed, extra little bit of fast. And he should move on to the next one in a second here. Just skip ahead a little bit. Try and keep it as fast as possible. Squalls remove movement impairing conditions. Squalls are the what the abilities are called. They basically just made up a new one because cantrips were already taken. So that means that Whirlwind will allow you to get out of immobilizes, and then it'll also make it so that Greatsword 3. Well, what's really funny is they said that Greatsword 3 and Sword 2 will both work for like removing immobs here, which I find really funny because I think the way you're gonna play this is gonna literally be Sword, Axe, Greatsword, because like I said, you get Axe 5 on the offhand, Sword in the main hand for high damage, melee damage, and then movement skill now gets buffed. Greatsword on the offhand also now gets buffed. And then Greatsword 3 will go crazy into Maul, Hilt Bash, Maul, boss moves, you dump all your feathers, whatever have you. Go from there. I don't know if you guys can hear anything in the background, but there's some background noise, so if there is, I apologize for that. And let me skip through here. Yeah, movement skills grant you swiftness and endurance, so that'll give you 6 seconds of swiftness, and then endurance on that is also really nice for PvP, because if you're using Greatsword, you also have the Greatsword block on Greatsword 4, so generally you can switch into Greatsword, dodge roll, block, dodge roll, Greatsword 3, and then you would have enough endurance to probably dodge roll again, most likely. So that'd be really nice. There could be a setup, like, we're kind of going back in time to Greatsword, Longbow, Bear, Gale Force, or Galeshot. I think will also be a really good setup because with this trait line, or this trait in particular, it buffs stuff. So with the third one, your pet will do like this little AoE every time you use your second ability, which is really nice. But this does have a cooldown on it. He doesn't have it right now because he's got his infinite cooldowns turned on. But this does have a 2-second cooldown, but it'll do a little AoE cleave that I think looks really cool. So that's pretty nice. They have ways to augment it with, like, if you want to do more stuff, then you can choose those, or you can just choose to stay in the bow and camp it, which is really cool. Bird thing. This one's kind of underwhelming. Beast skills grant quickness around the ranger. Like I said, they're trying to make this spec grant quickness as well, which, as long as they don't nuke the Untamed spec across the board, I'll be happy. Like, I'd prefer them to leave the variety of being able to still play the other one. Or still being able to play the Untamed spec, rather than just being forced into playing Galeshot because they remove it. But I could definitely see them removing it to say, well, we made an archer spec, play the archer spec. And then here, like I said, you'll get 2 count on this, but then you'll remove the immobilize off of that, basically making a volley of sorts to do even more damage, which would be really nice, which does have a 1 arrow cost. But the thing is, since you now have an extra skill you can use, that means you can generate your stacks even faster to go up into your Hawkeye, since you want to get to 5 shots even quicker here. Also, I feel like I've seen that icon in Guild Wars 1. Maybe I'm just hallucinating, I don't know. But yeah. And like I said, you can move with Hawkeye, thankfully. So you're not going to be movement locked and restricted with that, which was one of my big worries. But then we go to the Grandmasters here, and these are going to be the fun ones. So Quarry's Peril, which is the 4th ability here, which flips over to Pelt here on this one. And Supersonic Arrow, reset the cooldown of Bluster, which is the 2nd one. When you use Bluster or Hawkeye, you'll grant quickness to nearby allies, which is really nice. Just extra quickness while camping in the bow. So basically the way this will work is you use your 2nd ability, it'll have a 3-second cooldown, then you follow it up with the AoE, and then you follow that up with the Supersonic Arrow. And I think each one generates 1 Gale Force. So if you use Pelt, it's 1, then 1 here, then reset 3, 4 here, Supersonic Arrow, Hawkeye. I think. I'm pretty sure is what it would probably be, which will let you get to your Hawkeye rotation relatively quickly. And then the second one will turn your Wind Force into Gale Force, which gives you a shit ton of movement speed and even more damage. So basically, once the each of the stacks will do something now. You get movement speed and flat damage, and then after you use them with the Hawkeye, it'll then give you a 10-second buff for Gale Force. Basically, it takes the buff, use the thing, and then instead of resetting the buff, you get a stacking damage buff that you can then switch out, go to a different weapon, and then do some crazy stuff with it. So this is the option you play if you're running sword. What is it? If you're running like sword axe, great sword, you pop in, you get your Gale Force stacks. So say for example you're playing that exact setup. So you do your axe 5, you do Maul, Hilt Bash Maul, boss teleports away, flip into the bow, then you use your second ability for the cooldown, then you reset the cooldown with the volley, then you do this again, reset it again, do this again, supersonic arrow, get back to the boss, dump the Hawkeye, that then gives you the 10-second window, and you flip back, and now your Axe 5 is up into Maul, Hilt Bash Maul, repeat, right? So that's how you would go about running that. And then the really cool one that I like is the final one, which they'll skip over to it here in a second. This one, Shrike. So, what this does is after a number of missile hits, release a volley of arrows at your target and gain an arrow. Missiles from this trait do not count towards its next trigger. Now, this works with everything. This is what's really sick. So, with this, you can see here he does a little animation. He does 8 shots. Requires 8 missile hits. It was doing 8 auto attacks. Obviously, 3 here, 4 here, whatever have you. And then it does a little extra arrows. But the cool part is, it works with longbow too. And that's sick. That is absolutely dope. I love that. So, even then, you might still be able to run like longbow. Because if you flip over, if you do like, oh, actually, I'm curious now. Do you get quick draw if you come out of the longbow? Oh, if you come out of the Gale Force bow, fucking Cyclone bow. Oh my god, it all blends together. If you come out of the Cyclone bow, does that count as like weapon switching? So then you get quick draw, because if so, then you come out, you get quick draw, you use rapid fire, the cooldown's reduced, you use the sigil of cooldown reduction on kill, then the cooldown's reduced again, and then the Shrike goes off, and then you fire a second one with like 2.5 second CD. And then you get another Shrike, and then you go back into the bow. Okay, it could be a kind of vibe. Could be kind of a vibe. We'll have to see when I get my hands on it on the 27th. Or the 20th, rather. It won't work for Barrage or anything like that, though, because it's missile hits, and I'm pretty sure Barrage and Pelt will count as like a ground target thing, so that's a little bit unfortunate. And then they said that they upped the pet AI as well, so they made it so all your pet stuff is a little more responsive, which is really, really nice. They wanted to make it so the birds feel responsive, and the pets will activate their stuff quicker, because it did feel like they were a little bit on the clunky side. They would take a few seconds to do an animation if they were in the middle of something or whatever have you. That was where Untamed was really nice, since it was like an instant teleport, instant action, instant all this sort of stuff. So they cheated the pet AI system that way, but they went back and retroactively looked at it, which is going to be a really, really nice change for Ranger across the board. So, what are my thoughts on Galeshot altogether? Honestly, I am surprised for sure. Some of the problems, like I said, are still definitely there. It's going to be a lot more useful if you're using it as a swap in, swap out sort of thing. However, with Shrike, it gives you an arrow back when all of the projectiles come out. So it means that you can camp the bow a lot more often, because you're going to be able to do the multi-shot stuff, for example. And then the Shrike is going to go off as well. So then also with the Hawkeye, since you go up and you fire a shit ton of arrows, you could immediately trigger a Shrike from that too. Now, I don't know if it has an internal cooldown. It doesn't. Okay, that's actually really sick. Not having an internal cooldown means you can camp the bow a lot easier, because then, yeah, you can just spam your bluster, get multiple shots off, it resets the cooldown, and then if you're using, like I said, the sigil that resets cooldowns, I don't know if that'll work if you have that weapon equipped underneath the bow, you know what I mean? Like, if you're holding the bow with the sigil of cooldown reset, and then you pull the cyclone bow out over top of it, do you gain the benefits of the sigil or not? Because if so, then great, we're pogging. If not, because then it's gonna be on cooldown all the time, right? Or the second ability, the rapid fire, having a cooldown, it's gonna be a little bit underwhelming. But all in all, definitely a lot better than I expected. A lot more interested than I was to begin with. That's for sure. The utility skills, and I think the utility skills and Shrike are really the highlights for me for sure. Because Longbow 2 into extra arrows on Longbow 2. Yeah, okay. I'll play it just for that. That'll be fun. The bow itself has, like I said, the problem of not being skinnable. Not a big fan of that. The bow itself does look pretty cool, though. Hawkeye's animation is fantastic. Whirlwind's animation is fantastic. The fact you can move with Hawkeye is really, really nice. I was genuinely worried about that. What else? Some of the skills, like I said, or the third ability is ripped from Shortbow 3. The fourth ability is ripped from Dragon Hunter. The fifth ability is pretty sick, and the second ability is just 3 shots of rapid fire. So a little uninventive, but I mean it works. It works. I'll have to get my hands on it, but I'll say so far 7 out of 10, whereas before with the ideas I was thinking it was kind of in a 3 out of 10. So we'll have to see how it actually plays. Like I said, just the fact that I'll have power skill or power damage utilities rather than just Frost Trap is a big up from me, not gonna lie. But yeah, will it beat out Untamed? We will have to see. But it's definitely surprised me, and it looks a lot more playable than I originally thought. And my other issue that I had was that if you go into your mount, for example, you're not going to be able to use the bow because you wouldn't have had any arrows or anything like that. But thankfully, since they generate while you're outside of the bow, because with the way they had explained it, it said that it got more powerful while you were in it. So I figured you generated feathers while you were in the bow. But that's not how it works. You generate them outside of the bow, or with stuff like Shrike, restoring your arrows here, or one of the other options that makes it so when you pet swap, you also get 2 arrows back. I didn't cover that one. I missed it by accident. So it is possible to get a lot of arrows back and genuinely camp the bow. But like I said, because it's generating them while you're outside of it rather than while you're holding the damn thing, then going into a mount and then jumping off the mount and then pulling the bow back out, you're now at full arrows rather than having to start at 0 all over again and build all the way back up. Because that was how they kind of explained it in the first place, and that would not have worked whatsoever in open world. Because you would have literally mounted, jumped to the next pack, pulled the bow out, shit, I can't do anything. And that was how it was explained originally. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that's going to fit Guild Wars 2 all that well. Map clearing is going to be turbo trash. But thankfully, since they set it up so that you generate the arrows outside of the bow itself, that problem doesn't exist. So I'm genuinely looking forward to playing it now on the 20th to 27th, to which I will give you a full breakdown and my genuine impressions on the day. Let me know your thoughts down below, because I did a poll, a community poll, and it's pretty much 50-50 between you guys are interested and you also think they're trash. So, yeah, it's kind of what I expected, to be honest with you. But they kind of brought me back a little bit. But is it going to beat out Untamed? We'll see. We'll see.